So just want to welcome everyone. Welcome to another one of our amazing panel discussions. We've been running the entire month focused on community outreach, patient communication. And today, sadly, is the last event. So we just want to welcome you and thank all of you who attended every session. Like we see some of the names here, and many of you attended every one of the sessions. So thank you for giving your time and joining us on this journey. And so today's panel discussion is really what I would like to say a creative solution. We know that the healthcare industry that we face persistent staffing shortages, and these staffing shortages hinder the ability to deliver quality care and also screening. So we're talking about cancer screening goals. And so when we look at staffing shortages, we like to present some creative ideas and ways in which we can seek additional support in our healthcare space. And one way to do that is through academic partnerships. So we have two amazing panelists, three panelists. So you all are used to seeing Dr. Nicole Dixon-Weathersby as the moderator today. She's actually joining this panel. And they will share with us some insights and information around how to build relationships with your academic partners to help fill your pipeline of staffing. So without further ado, I am now going to pass the mic over to Augustine, who will introduce our amazing panelists, and then we'll flow right into the event. I want to remind you that your questions are always welcome. So please use your chat, drop a question, and we'll make sure that the panelists address your question. Also want to mention that this is a CME accredited event. So if you are here today and you need professional CME credits, this event is a CME accredited event. Want to also state that the speakers here are here to provide free information. The information is not at all structured for any financial gain. It is not supported by a financial institute. This program is funded by HRSA, and we also like to thank HRSA for allowing us to create this platform. So with that, we'll pass it off to Augustine.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. And I'll jump right in introducing our panelists for today, starting off with Dr. Nicole Dixon-Weathersby, who has over a decade of experience working in community backgrounds. She's currently serving as the trainer and technical support specialist at VMG, and she's also one of the leads on the Accelerating Cancer Screening Project. So welcome, Dr. Nicole Dixon-Weathersby. Moving on to Dr. LaShanta Eberhardt, who is an impact strategist, a social and behavior scientist, and health equity leader with more than 17 years of public health experience, and also the founder and CEO of Thrive Now Consulting. Welcome, Dr. LaShanta Eberhardt. And last but not least, we have Tamara Terry. Tamara Terry has over 20 plus years of experience in university collaborations, building and managing strategic partnerships, survey research, and project management. And we welcome Tamara Terry to the panel for today. Before we get into our questions, I am going to launch a pre-poll. So, watching that now, let me know when you all can see it. So when you have a moment, please answer the questions. I'll read the question for the group. First question is, how familiar are you with workforce development partnerships with academic institutions? Okay, we see some responses coming in. For this pre-poll, we will have 3 questions. Question 2 is, does your organization currently partner with any colleges or universities? And then our last question for today is, how significant are staffing shortages in your organization? So please go through the poll and answer. We see a lot of responses coming through. Also, please let us know if you're unable to use the poll via the chat. Okay, I see Cassina doesn't see the poll. I can. I will post the questions in the chat for you. This is question number 1. Okay, we will give it another minute and then we will move on to our questions for our panelists. Sure. Well, let's jump right in. Screen. Okay, so this first question is for you, Tamara. It's on strategic and capacity building. And first question is, how can one build relationships with academic institutions?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Augustine. So this question is really important to me personally because I'm a graduate of a HBCU, North Carolina Central University, and throughout my career, I've done a lot of work building partnerships with academic partners, but more specifically, university partners, HBCU partners. And so I have a lot of great tips for you all, so get ready to take some notes. So first, it's really important to nurture relationships with intention. So you have to think about university partnerships as a relationship that you would have with any person. It takes time, it takes trust, it takes care. You have to be willing to commit to the time needed to really build a solid foundation. It's really important to focus on creating transformational connections versus transactional exchanges. I always say that giving funding to a university is great, but building programs and initiatives through partnership and collaboration is even better. These partnerships typically are long-standing and they outlive a one-time check moment that you could provide to a university. In addition, with the right collaborative efforts, you can really create streams of income via proposals, grants, and purposeful giving versus charity giving, right? Really giving with an intent to, with purpose, with an intent to help create something or drive something that will last much longer than a one-time moment. So that's my first note, really nurturing relationships with intention. The second thing is seeking strategic alignment. So it's so important that you are intentional in the shared values and goals and really thinking about the synergies between your organization and potential university partners. These common threads will really serve as a strong foundation for a sustainable collaboration. Oftentimes, I've created like crosswalks from the university schools to various business units within an organization to really show that clear alignment, that clear space where we can work together, that clear space where students within a university can align directly with a business unit within an organization for internship opportunities, etc. This really helps give a clear picture of the areas where like those interactions can happen and you can really combine forces and create strength. You can also use this information to identify gaps and really lean into your expertise to help enhance your partner. So part of it is where the things where we're alike, but then also where the areas where we're different and we can lean on each other to really build a solid foundation. With HBCUs in particular, I want to stress that it's not a one size fits all. Oftentimes we create these relationships and we think we can just fit this one puzzle piece into every puzzle, and that's just not how puzzles work. They're very complicated. You have to be very intentional about the pieces. And so with HBCUs, the strategy is to really create something unique and special for them. When you think about resources for HBCUs, when you think about staffing, it just looks very differently. I have a great example. I was working closely with a school and closely with their business school. And our hope was to get internships specifically within their business school. And so I was working directly with their school, but I was also working with other partners at other universities that were much larger. And so when we pushed out the requisition for the internships, immediately the schools that were larger immediately took over the internships, and the HBCU, which is much smaller, really got the scraps at the end. And so I had to be intentional about creating a space of equity to ensure that HBCUs have a seat at the table. So I said, well, hey, we should identify one or two interns or three or four internships that are specifically for our HBCU partners so that they don't get lost in the shuffle when our other larger partners come to the table and all of their students apply. And so that's just a great way to just think about creating a customized approach for the different schools that you are wanting to partner with. One other thing to always do when you're trying to think about a partnership is create a joint proposal. Really, it's important to have those conversations once you understand what the alignment is. Really get it down on paper. Make sure you have it written down, and it's joint, meaning you and your partner are coming to the table to formulate how you want to move forward with the relationship. And this is not an MOU. An MOU will come also, but this is really more a working document to speak to the areas where you want to collaborate and connect. And when you're really typing up this joint proposal, you should consider what I would call mutually beneficial opportunities, where it's not a situation where I am the only winner because sit on the organizational side or the corporate America side, but rather we both win in this relationship that we're trying to build. Last but certainly not least, create a cadence for meetings. So again, once you've done the work, you've nurtured the relationship, you've sought alignment, you realize that it's not a one size fits all, and you've really done the work to create something unique for that university. You've created your proposal. Now get a meeting on the books to ensure that either it could be monthly, it could be quarterly, but some cadence where you're connecting directly with your partner to ensure you all are aligned and really ensuring that the efforts that you've created are moving forward, and just creating a space for where there's innovation and creativity for you all to talk about next steps. And I welcome my other panelists to jump in and share any thoughts that they have.
Yes. Does any other panelists like to add to the question?
Yes, I'll add. Can you hear me, Augustine?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just add, kind of building on what Tamara said, is I think some more, incremental but stepwise things are starting with maybe a conversation too, with reaching out, being intentional about where you plug into the university. So like Tamara mentioned, like the business unit, but I'm thinking about maybe career services, thinking about community outreach initiatives within universities, and even leveraging some great alumni or current staff that you might have relationships with or you have within your network, and seeing how you might be able to set up a session, being transparent, more importantly, about your needs, the resources, the expectations, and the same with if you're bringing along different entities, to make sure there's expectations of how you spread the fold in terms of building that relationship, but also having those informational sessions so you can kind of talk about what that looks like. That's all I would add.
That's awesome. I'm going to move right to question number 2. How can organizations develop internship or volunteer programs in a way that benefits both students and the partners, especially in underserved or rural areas?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it's really, really important. I'm a believer that you have to get into the community if you want community support, right? It's really important that you are talking to those communities, those underserved communities, those rural areas. Specifically, when you're thinking about volunteerism or even internships, I always tell people that I stumbled across my career. I did not know I would be a social scientist and work as a scientist for 25 years. I didn't have visibility into being a scientist, right? And so I want to say first for like our students, really create visibility for students into the field. Healthcare in particular is so big, and people immediately think like, oh, you have to be a doctor or you have to be a nurse. But in actuality, the healthcare field is huge, and there's so many areas that you can explore and eventually create a career into. So, really being intentional about getting into the community and providing that visibility for the potential students and people that you want to connect with is really important. And to LaShanta's point earlier, really thinking about those relationships with universities, connecting directly with career fairs. Career fairs are happening at the school every year. They have a large career fair for the entire university, but then a lot of times each of the schools also have their career fairs. Connecting directly with career services centers at the school. Being intentional about identifying a specific contact at the school level. So again, if I want to connect with the business school, I want to connect with the biology school, the nursing program, really being intentional about identifying who that person is and building out opportunities for internships within that particular department. Um, I also would always encourage that as you're building out your internship program, you're really thinking about how to create co-created goals for both your health center and the academic institution to ensure there's alignment. I'm always going to talk about equity when you're building out an internship program. Equity and access is so important. Pay your interns. Let me say that again. Pay your interns. As a college student, I worked throughout my college. Like every year I worked because I didn't have the funds to not work. And so when you have interns that are unpaid, people that are in underserved and underrepresented communities often will miss out because I can't take a free internship because I have to work. And so providing a paid internship ensures that you're being equitable and that everyone has an opportunity to participate and get the same experiences as people that may have been brought up a little differently and have more opportunity and funding to just not work and go to school. So pay your interns, if I didn't say that already 3 times. Also, you can offer stipends, housing support, or transportation assistance to really remove any barriers for students, especially those from like underrepresented backgrounds. Think about like flexible schedules to help accommodate academic calendars and personal responsibilities. I always believe in creating some sort of learning or mentorship program within your internship. So just don't bring your students and just have them follow me, do what I do, but rather really give them these experiential experiences with people and mentors and leaders, etc. If you pair students with like seasoned professionals who can really guide them through real world challenges, I've seen that to be a very successful model. Um, Another thing to think about is at the end, how are you measuring success? Really just tracking your outcomes, really just tracking how many interns you had, and more specifically, how many interns you keep. Ideally, your interns should be your future employees. We don't just have internship programs just to have them. The real goal is to plant seeds and to train them and develop them so that long term they can be us, right? And they can come into our organization and be full-time employees. That's the real investment. Our ability to groom and train our up and coming future leaders. I guess the only other thing I'll add is I'm giving them access and visibility to high level leadership within your organization. That's something that we've done. On day one, we have a kickoff session with our internships, with our interns and our CEOs there. He's speaking to the interns. He's welcoming them in to the program. He's really setting the tone for what they can expect and more specifically the support that they can get while they're there. And so I'll pause there.
Thank you, Tamara. Those were certainly some bespoke strategies to engage and partner with colleges and universities. So thank you. Moving on to question number 3. This question is for both Dr. Nikhil and also Dr. Eberhardt. What strategies have been most successful in recruiting students, particularly from public health, social work, or medical programs, to participate in screening and outreach efforts?
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and get started and then I'll popcorn it to Dr. LaShanta. Um, so one thing I can say, and this is not only for what I observe, but also experience, is using programs not only at the college level, but go a level below the high school level. Starting out with different programs at the high school level, and you might think, well, some of these students, they might not know what they want to do or what they're doing, but a lot of these high schools have some type of program where someone's interested in biology or chemistry, or they might have a magnet program. And at the high school level, it was, hey, spend a half a day at the health center. I got a chance to go to a hospital, and I was at a hospital for a week after school, or because I was a junior, senior, I got a chance to spend a half a day at the hospital, and I got a chance to like see what was happening from the front desk to an actual surgeon. I was in the room looking at heart surgery. So that really piqued my interest. That said, oh my gosh, this is to me, and that was the coolest thing ever to see someone stopping someone's heart. What? Who's seeing that at the age of 13? And so, we have to meet everyone where they are. So get them interested at a young age. A lot of students, they know they want to help someone, they just don't know how. One thing I can appreciate is currently what's going on at some HBCUs as well as small universities and colleges is the new projects where they're meeting the community and saying, hey, we know you want to help people with this project. We will start a program for you. Hence the pop-ups of so many doula projects right now, because they see a need in these communities, and you have people in the community that want to help. Let's meet them where they are, start these programs. So again, if it wasn't for someone coming to my high school and saying, who wants to learn about medicine and who wants to learn about helping someone? And I raised my hand. I said, sure. Got a chance to go to the high school. Then when I went to college, I said, you know what? I want to see more of this. And there was a PCA that came to my college and say, hey, we're looking for people to help at the front desk at several health centers. And to other people, you're like, the front desk, how is that going to help? And they said, in exchange, now, unlike what Tamara said, they didn't pay us, but in exchange, every week for 30 minutes, we got one-on-ones with the heads of the PCA. So from the physicians to the CEOs to et cetera. And that was knowledge you cannot take back. And of course, we learned about manners. We learned about how to engage with patients from phone services at that time. And I'm telling my age, we had to do files. We had paper files, so I had to do filing. I had to do all of that, but I was learning. I learned every single day. And that was the best experience. Now, after that, I was wondering, okay, how can I learn more? What can I do more? And that's when I learned about, hey, there's internships and rotations. And one thing I must say, and I think Tamara said this and Dr. LaShanta said this, is make sure you carve out some room for HBCUs and other small universities, because sometimes we don't hear it at first. We might hear it at the back end. And that is what I can say about the CDC. They were very intentional in a fellowship with regards to public health and healthcare. And they intentionally brought someone to FAMU, Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University, and said, hey, who's interested in learning more about public health? What do you need? Okay, you need transportation, you need this, you need that. Sure, we will help you, and you get the title of a fellow. Best thing ever. It completely changed my life. And so I say all this to say, again, we have the aspect of, well, my health center doesn't have the money. So how can we bring this on? Okay, can you carve out time for these students to learn? Can you carve out time and ask them what they want to learn? Second, can you talk to a university? And again, the advocate to get us into these programs is never the dean. It's not the dean. It's not the president of the school. It's a teacher. It's a professor. It's an adjunct. Those people. I'm an adjunct professor as well. And my students come to me all the time and say, I need an internship. Where can I go? If I can say, hey, I know this health center in your area that's looking for help, you send them your way. But you know what? I have to know. You have to contact me as a professor and say, I'm looking for a front desk person in exchange. Um, they'll do this. I'm looking for someone to help with health education in my health center. Do you have someone studying public health communication that can help us with our marketing to reach this community, etc.? There are ways to help with your staffing, as well as build a relationship with your local universities that can be a beautiful relationship. And again, starting from high school and go all the way up. All right, and I'm stop talking right now.
Dr. Eberhard, do you have any comments to that?
Yeah, I'll just add and just piggyback because I think Dr. Weathersby touched a lot of different things. But what I'll say is I'll tap into what she just said last that builds on connecting to those smaller universities, including HBCUs, other minority serving institutions, technical colleges, but looking at how you can even place programs at those schools. And so one of that being a strategy, that was one of the things I've seen that was successful, I think, for my career that had me early on. I was a college student, but I was able to actually be on campus during a summer program where I was able to actually do the same thing, go into the OR, the operating room, and actually see what it meant to be an anesthesiologist or, whatever I was interested in, which is something that I was interested in over time. But I got to experience that hands-on. And at the same time, some of the other things, framing opportunities around things that map onto the program. So the public health, social work, or medical program. So for me, what was vital, I worked as a scholar with the Area Health Education Center in the city where I was getting my training. And so I was a scholar for them, and we identified a burgeoning issue in the community, a public health issue that we could really tackle. So making sure there's alignment in terms of you want to strategically place those students and be able to identify them, but also being able to let them get their hands and feet ready, get hands-on practical experience from what they've learned in the classroom.
That's awesome. Thank you both. I'm going to move on to, in the interest of time, question number 4, how can academic partnerships help foster long-term interest in working in community-based health center settings, particularly among students from underrepresented backgrounds? And Dr. Nicole Dixon-Weathersby or Dr. Eberhard, whoever would like to take this question.
I'll start. Okay. So how can academic partners help foster long-term interest? I would say definitely, Dr. Weathersby kind of tapped into it earlier. Early exposure, right? Early exposure, I think, is really critical. Early exposure to things like community-based settings, community-based health, and shadowing or doing some service learning in those experiences. So seeing how you might be able to see if that is a part of the curriculum that the students are already a part of. And so you can expose them early on so they really understand by the time they finish their training, is this really they truly want to do, or what aspects they want to be engaged in? And making sure the students are in a way matched to mentors that also are on similar trajectories or can speak to, I'll say, the identities of that student or the interests that they have in what they're doing. When you're working in community-based settings, we know this probably from just the literature and experience, you want there to be concordance in terms of who you're working with, the communities that you're working with. I think that goes a long way in terms of creating relationships and partnerships and strengthening that, making it long term. So I think that's a really important piece. Another thing would be making sure there's training to help them understand longevity, and it helps to prepare them for what they're going to encounter in those community-based settings. I think a lot of times we want to do this great work and we get out there and we don't fully understand what we might encounter. So just preparing them in that way. And I would also say hosting maybe some type of a networking event with other alumni. Those things might, open up some doors to help students out. I know with some of the health centers in South Carolina, where I did some of my training, there's some collaborations with other local universities, HBCUs, and others even, where we might be able to do some work in the community and work on those collaborative efforts that help us really get an understanding of what is the need in the community, and how we can connect those students that have underrepresented backgrounds to those efforts.
Wow, that is awesome. You see me bringing my head up and down because I'm taking notes myself. So from the shadowing to early exposure, matching with mentors, networking events, and collaborative efforts, these are all great strategies to engage. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, moving on. This question is for Dr. Eberhard and Tamara. In what ways can colleges and universities act as equity partners, not just talent pipelines, when co-designing outreach and engagement initiatives with health centers?
Eberhard, do you want to get us started and I can jump in? Okay, I'll jump in. Yeah, so equity is really important versus equality. I feel the need to take 5 seconds to just quickly address this. When you give everything equally, that assumes we all get the same thing and we all need the same thing, versus equity gives people what they need. And so it's really important to think about that. And so as I've partnered with HBCUs over the years, and we really thought about the best way to strengthen their expertise and also have them strengthen ours. And so some examples that come to mind would be during COVID, there was a lot of research that was happening in the HBCU space, but it was really it wasn't being highlighted and overshadowed by all the research that was happening at some of the larger institutions or just happening across the world. And so the company that I worked for at that time, we were just really intentional about aligning directly with the research that was happening at this particular HBCU. They had researchers aligned in several different areas around COVID, and we aligned about 8 researchers directly with the different topic areas that they had. In addition, the school had what they called their mobile COVID unit, where they were going around giving out vaccines. And so we just did whatever we could to just provide support for them and also highlight their activities so people really understood what was happening. So again, the equity piece, really ensuring that university got appropriate visibility for all the amazing work that was happening. The last thing I'll add is I've also been in situations where we've created what I would call a joint center between the university and a corporation, where we identify a topic and we build around that topic. And it's a joint center that we have together. And I've seen us through that center partner on, again, research proposals, partner on various initiatives, support each other to build out maybe to support another initiative that may not necessarily be directly connected to both of our both of us, but rather a third party just collectively coming in and providing support, and also using space. I've created like a lab space, a joint lab space for where HBCU students can come into that lab space and really get hands-on experience directly with a seasoned researcher to really give them visibility and exposure to the scientists and just allow them to experience science at a different level and just get exposure in a way that they would not have gotten before if we did not have that partnership. So again, I'm always thinking about equity versus equality because they're not the same. Dr. LaShanta.
Yeah, that's great. I would just add on to that. We talk about equity partners. We're talking about that ownership. We're talking about a stake in the ground for both entities. And so I think when you talk about equity in that sense, you want to talk about the collaborative piece where both partners are sharing in the goals and the measurable outcomes. So from the outset, largely in public health, we use community-based participatory research. You want to make sure that the colleges and universities are at the table when you're creating these partnerships and these pipelines. And that's a part of that co-design. You know, what are the needs of both entities as you're coming to the table? And also, data is truly important. What has worked in the past and what has not worked? I think we would be remiss if we didn't think about what is the historical challenges that each one has faced as well, because you have to bring that into the conversation as you think about moving in tandem to really make impact and create a pipeline. Um, the other thing I would say is you want to ensure there's reciprocity. Make sure there's community benefits, not just the institutional benefit, that the students are getting all the benefits or that the health center is getting all the benefits, but you want to be able to bring what you both have as far as a value from a values perspective to the table and be able to demonstrate that to build this partnership. And lastly, I would say supporting learning on both sides. The FQHCs, the health centers, they have shared field experiences, and the colleges help to build the students' readiness at the same time. So it's really that sense of reciprocity, sense of impact on both sides when it comes to measurement, outcomes, and impact. Those are the things that I would highlight.
Tamara and Dr. Eberhard, again, great insights. Reciprocity, creating a pipeline, early exposure, all great insights. Thank you very much. I do have another question. This one is for Dr. Weathersby. Question is, how do you deal with HIPAA for high schoolers volunteering or coming for half a day to observe?
Thank you for that. And that is very important to consider. So first, we need to start by distinguishing. There's a difference between observation and direct services. So for any high schooler coming in to observe, we ensure that they are not assessing any PHI or protected health information. So that means they aren't viewing patient charts or sitting in on exams or engaging in conversation that include identifiable PHI. Now, this is again different from when I was in college and we did an internship through the PCA where we had to address HIPAA and we had to sign a few things, etc. We were actually hired interns. So with the high schoolers, the best thing to do is before they even step in the building, you have them sign a confidentiality agreement with their parents. You do talk about HIPAA, so we don't ignore it. We also should do like a brief orientation or training, again, including the parents if possible, or their teacher, if there's a sponsored class or a teacher or someone at the school that can also step in if that parent is unavailable to attend that training or orientation. And we want them to understand boundaries and expectations. So if they see a friend, a family member, etc., coming in for an appointment, they need to understand what they can and cannot say. So it's important for them to understand HIPAA, but please know that observation versus direct services does not apply with regards to high schoolers just doing a observation. But it's still great to talk to them about it. And again, if they're doing something like volunteering to help with a fair of some sort, health education fair, if you're asking them to put like packets together for a community event or for your office, like you're doing a big marketing campaign, you're asking them to put that together. Again, that is not something that they have access to PHI about, and there's no HIPAA considerations for those things.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Weathersby. This next question is for the entire group. What common challenges have you encountered when partnering with universities, and how have you successfully navigated or overcome them?
Get started since I was just speaking, but say the few things. So one, when I started a internship project with the state health departments that I've worked for, some of the issues that we face is unclear expectations. So what the student wants to get out of that internship versus what the, let's say, the health center or what the university wants. The university will always want whatever the book is saying they should learn. And as we all know, we've been in the healthcare setting, the book is not always what it is in real life. And so it's always great to do check-ins. So once you have a set up relationship with that academic institution, and let's say you already have some interns or some volunteers that are working in your health center or at your hospital, etc., it's always great to still do check-ins to say, hey, this is what's going on with this student or students, and this is what they're learning. They're doing this because it builds this skill. Is that okay? And so just to continue that line of communication that always seems to go very well. So everyone is getting what they need out of the internship, and for the student to not feel like they are just free help. Because that always comes also again, checking in, making sure they know why everyone's doing what they're doing and having clear communication that usually address all the issues I've seen. So I'll popcorn it to someone else.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll add in something here as well. So a common challenge might be maybe a mismatch in some of the timelines that you have. Universities, of course, I think you have to be mindful of this when you're developing a partnership and establishing any type of program. But things can definitely change. There's a lot of holidays. There are a lot of limitations, especially when you're working with a smaller institution compared to a larger institution. There may be that one person that you need to talk to sign off on something, and that can delay progress if that person is on vacation or there's no backup person, which we tend to see in smaller universities, not just like minority serving institutions. You see this in technical colleges, you see this in even other professional schools that are smaller. There's one person to answer questions or work on something. And so I think it's really important to try to plan ahead when it comes to that, making sure you're aligning things with the appropriate fiscal year or the semester, making sure you have the appropriate contact, not only the primary contact, but a secondary contact. Who do you need to go to in terms of making sure students are where they need to be? Who's also supervising not only on the side of, say, in this instance, a health center, there's a supervisor there, but there needs to be a supervisor in contact on the side of the university as well, that you can get in touch with in the event a student is sick, in the event something else happens, timelines change for something, but you want to make sure there's effective and consistent communication, because that can also map onto the mismatch of timelines. So just thinking about making sure things are clear and being proactive rather than reactive.
Awesome. I love that. Great insights. We'll move on to the next question. Oh, does someone have something?
No, I was just gonna say
Sorry.
the only thing that I would add as far as challenges is so I, although I've mentioned kind of creating relationships at the school levels, like the business school, the school of education, that's really good. But I also feel really strongly about creating that relationship at the institute level. You know, a lot of times if the relationship isn't there or the alignment more specifically isn't there at the institute level, you may find that you're, I don't know what's the saying. I don't beating a dead horse or it just doing you may find yourself spinning your wheels because that commitment isn't there at the chancellor provost level, right? So really think about that. And then also helping universities to think bigger than just a one moment check, right? A lot of these universities need additional resources. And so funding is always at the forefront of their minds. But really, really helping them to see a larger, bigger, long-term picture that will ultimately create relationships that will lead to funding, workforce development, economic mobility, et cetera.
Awesome. Great insights. Thank you, Tim. And also thank you, Dr. Ephardt. For health centers with limited staffing and funding, what are some practical first steps to initiate partnerships with academic institutions? And again, this question is for any of our panelists who would like to provide their insights.
So one thing I can say is if you are, let's say, a small health center, you're already understaffed, as I've gotten a chance to get to know the over 1,400 health centers that are part of this project. One thing I could say is get help from your PCA. Contact your PCA and say, hey, we would like to have an intern, a fellow, something in this area. This person can rotate in between the health centers in this area, etc. Can you help us establish this? And so reaching out to your PCA to see if they can help you establish this internship, fellowship project. Maybe they can also help with the training. They can also contact some of the universities, etc. So I would say ask for help first. That should be step one, especially if you're already stretched thin. Send an email to your PCA. Maybe it's a 30-minute phone call, but to me, that should be step one if you're already stressing out about time management. So that's my first step.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Weatherspoon. Any other insights that our panelists like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add something to that. I haven't worked at a medical university before, and I worked with some primary care associations. In addition to that, I would say seeing if they have a network that they work with. Like we work directly with a PCA on a federally funded project for 5 years. And so we had students that were associated with us because of that project, because they were interested in medicine and things like that. And so when you think about limited staffing and funding, you have to go to your extended network to think about where else you have resources. I think a lot of times we just think about we don't have the money or we don't have the staff, but we are also not thinking about the large network that we have associated with us. And so local universities, there are always students that are looking to build their career. And I know largely they want to get paid, but even in the transition, and even as we think about the climate and things that we're experiencing now, there are people that have gaps on their resume. There are people that are seeking opportunities and they don't want to have those gaps. But this is an opportunity to work with those talented and gifted folks that bring a wealth of knowledge and experience and see how you all can partner together to make impact, right? And so creating that space and opportunity and giving something in exchange, whether it's mentorship, whether it's a letter recommendation, whatever, like what can you exchange in terms of value that you can bring to the table? Because everyone knows about federally qualified health centers, and to be able to partner with one and see hands-on and work with the community directly is something that is really valuable and invaluable experience that students and trainees can have.
Awesome. Great insights. Thank you, Dr. Everhart. And we are coming up on time. We do have one more question for the group. And then our last question is, how can partnerships with HBCUs help address both staffing shortages and the need for culturally representative care in historically underserved communities?
I'll jump in first and just give a quick speech. One, representation matters, right? So our ability to create diversity within our workforce is critically important. The data shows that when you have more diversity, your productivity is higher, your financial yields are higher. So all things are great when you have diversity, right? And so HBCUs help create that diversity, those students, their expertise, etc. That's all I have.
Awesome,
Keep it
awesome.
real simple and sweet.
It's ready for a whole speech. I do want to jump in and say one thing: if your health center is dealing with issues with your patients with fear, relationship building, maybe some trust issues. One thing, if these patients can usually say is they do trust and do have relationships with their local HBCU. Most of the time, that really helps the health center be able to, one, keep communication with that patient, and two, that patient usually reveal things that they didn't before because they see someone else in the room, someone else that you're partnered with. And I've seen this firsthand where there has been a partnership with a HBCU medical school, and that medical school sends their doctors down at least once a month to another city that has been struggling. I mean, struggling to get patients in for screenings, etc. But as soon as those patients hear that this, medical school will be here on this day, everybody was there, everybody, because it was that trust. And as we know, there are some people that are still reluctant to go to the health center, but it's something about that trust of knowing that you are doing this with an HBCU. It makes it more like digestible. They can trust that I can come here and I'm gonna get the results that I need to, and I'm gonna get the help I need to, because this university I trust is here. So that's my 2 cents.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Such great insights from our panelists. My oh my, the time has flown by. In the interest of time, I will be posting or launching our post poll. So I'm launching it now. Let me know when you all can see it on screen. And I'll also post the questions in our chat. And please, when you get a chance, yes, give us your feedback. Awesome. First question is, how likely are you to initiate or expand academic partnerships based on today's session? And please feel free to continue to go through this and answer this question. I will close right here. Also, I'd like to take a moment to thank our panelists for today. Such great insights. Again, the time has flown by so quickly, and also a special thank you to HRSA for funding this event and being our partner. I'm going to pass it over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Augustine. I think you wrapped that up pretty well. Pretty good. Oh, thank you all for joining today's panel discussion, partnering with colleges and universities to fill staffing gaps. I just would like to encourage each of you to reflect on at least one idea that you took away today from this session. And how can you explore more or implement that idea within your own organization this quarter? So, whether it's the initiating the internship pipelines, or is it the reaching out to your local college, small steps can drive meaningful change. And so we really want you to take away what you learned today and put it to action, right? And so just want to say thank you to our amazing panelists. So much inspiration and practical strategies that you shared with us today, and we appreciate your time. And again, thank you, HRSA. Do we want Health Resources and Service Administration for funding today's session and supporting this innovative approach to advancing health and also increasing access to cancer screenings. So we look forward to continuing this conversation with all of you in the coming months and supporting you in your outreach efforts. So thank you again and take care.